Shalom, shalom. First, I'd like to start this video off by saying, Call Haloyim, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, HaMashiach, Malaki, Yahushai. This is Akarab Zayim, doing a small Romans 9 and 6 breakdown. Alright, so let's get into it. Romans 9 and 6, it's in the KJV. Not as though the word of God had taken none effect, for they are not all Israel, which are of Israel. So Paul speaking, saying everyone that's in Israel are not Israel. And if we go to the NLT, kind of breaks it down a little bit more for you. So let's do this one. This is Romans 9 and 6 in the NLT. Well then, have God failed to fulfill his promise to Israel? It's a question. And he says, no. For not all who are born into the nation of Israel are truly members of God's people. So that breaks it down even furthermore for you. Letting you know that just because the people are in that land, or maybe born into the land of Israel, born in the land of Israel, are not God's people. And we've seen that back when the Romans were there and were under Roman captivity with King Herod. When you look him up, it says that he's an Idumean, but he was trying to say that he's the king of the Jews, So, but Christ was the king of the Jews that was prophesied to come, and that's why he was trying to, that's why he sent out the order to kill all of the newborns, all the way up, I think, to the age of 3. If I'm not mistaken, he gave that order, trying to kill Yahushai, because he was, they had read out the prophecies that, the Savior was coming. But I'm not going to focus on the Herod part of it right now. Let's get into a little more like modern now on who's in our land now that's proclaiming to be the Jews and they're not. But we can get into that a little bit later. Let's go right now let's go to Luke 21 and 24 in the NLT. 21, 24. NLT. Okay. This is Luke 21 and 24 in the NLT. His red letter. And it reads, they will be killed by the sword or sent away as captives to all nations of the world. And Jerusalem will be trampled down by the Gentiles until the period of the Gentiles come to an end. So, it's Christ giving a prophecy of the latter days, which is now, saying that, speaking of his people, that's why if you can read up, to verse 23, he's saying how terrible it will be for the pregnant women, for the nursing mothers in those days, for there will be a great disaster in the land and a great anger against this people. And this is when he was talking about when we were going to get, how the rest of Israel is going to be expelled out of the land. Because at the time of Christ was walking, it was only the southern kingdom was there. The northern kingdom been exiled out to Assyrian captivity and then over to the Americas after they left the Assyrian captivities. Well, let's get back to 24. It said they will be killed by the sword or sent away captives to all nations of the world. So, if the Jews are the so-called people there now in the land are the true Jews, then technically they're not even supposed to be there, because it said they will be sent away captive into all the nations of the world. They're not sent away captives to nations in all nations of the world. And it says, in Jerusalem will be trampled down by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles come to an end. So meaning, while the Israelites will be in captivity, the Gentiles are going to be in Jerusalem, running it and walking around. Clearly lets you know people who's there now aren't the true Israelites. They're not the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So let's go to Ezekiel 36 and 5 really quick. Ezekiel 36 6 and verse 5. And it reads, "This is what the sovereign Lord says: My jealousy, anger burns against these nations, especially Edom, because they have shown utter contempt for me by gleefully taking my land for themselves as plunder." So when we got exiled out, the Edomites came and took our land. So who's dwelling there now in the land of Israel? Edomites. That's why I said the Gentiles, the land was going to be trampled by the Gentiles. So who's in the land now? Gentiles, the Edomites, which we know Amalek is the ones that's taken our identity, which is the son of Eliphaz, which is the son of Esau, which is Esau's the father of the Edomites. You can read that in Genesis, and it gives the whole breakdown of Esau's children, his 6 sons. Yeah, so they have the land now, and they're dwelling and living in our land as if they're the true descendants that's supposed to be over there, and as if they're the true Jews. So let's go to Jeremiah 30 really quick. Try to show you that this is Jeremiah 30. Sorry about that. Give me. Hold on. Let me try to get down to KJV. Okay, here it goes. Jeremiah 30 and 10. Therefore, fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord. Neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. Now, so clearly letting you know that the Israelites are not in the land right now. And now I can know. Let me go to Jeremiah 30 and 10 in the NLT real quick. So do not be afraid, Jacob, my servant. Do not be dismayed, Israel, for the Lord, says the Lord. For I will bring you home again from distant lands, and your children will return from their exile. Israel will return to a life of peace and quiet, and no one will terrorize them. So if those supposed to be the Jews in the land, they're supposed to be dwelling there safe, quiet, peace, no one terrorizing them. They're being terrorized over there. They've been threatened with war. There's been wars over there, multiple wars. They're letting you know those people there are not the Israelites. Plus, in it says, it says that the Israelites are going to be exiled. Well, remember when Christ has spoken in Luke, and how Jerusalem going to be trodden down by the Gentiles. Let you know we're not there, because it said, "For I will bring you home again from distant lands, and your children will return from their exile." We're exiled still. Israel will return to a life of peace and quiet, and no one will terrorize them. What peace do we have? We have no peace here in this land. There's no peace. There's no quiet, and we're still, and we be terror, and we're terrorized. To this day. So clearly, the people that aren't the Israelites. So let's go to Isaiah 2 and 4 in the NLT really quick. 2 and verse 4. And it reads, let's go up to 2 and 3 real quick. People from many nations will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of Jacob's God. There he will teach us his ways, Now, is anyone running to go to Israel, trying to cleave unto them, saying, and want to try to learn from any of these Jewish people? No, no one's doing that. So it says, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of Jacob, to the house of Jacob's God. There he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his path." No one want to walk in the path of the Jews, of the Jewish people. No one's doing that. Everyone still have their own walk and doing their own thing. No one's following them. But this here said that there he will teach us his ways, meaning the Israelites are going to be teaching these other nations our ways, and they'll walk in our path. That's why I'm saying that we will walk in his path. For the Lord's teaching will go out of Zion, and his word will go out from Jerusalem. And then verse 4 says, "The Lord will mediate between nations and will settle international disputes. They will hammer their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks." And here, peep this out. "A nation will no longer fight against nation, nor train for war anymore." Clearly letting us know the people who's in that land are not the true Israelites, the true Jews. Are not supposed to be there. Because when the Israelites are back home and back in their land, everyone is going to be looking to follow them. They're going to be the top nation. Nations are going to be cleaving, running to them, walking and following their ways. No one's doing that with the Jewish people. They're over there now. It said, also it said, nation will no longer fight against nation. There's practically World War III going on. That can break at any minute now. Nor train for war anymore. So clearly they're not the Jews. Because when we get back home, it's going to be peace. So that's just a few scriptures. I can kind of go in a little more. Like I can go into Acts 22:7 for an example. Like when Paul was, that's kind of going back into like almost like her, but like how us here, like we're born in America, we're American citizens, but we're Israelites. You see what I'm saying? So just because you're born somewhere doesn't make you a descendant of that place. And I'll give you an example of Paul. Acts 22:27. It said the chief captain came to him, said in Salakia. Then the chief captain came and said unto him, "Tell me, art thou a Roman?" And Paul replied, "Yeah." And the chief captain answered, "With a great sum obtained in his freedom." And Paul said, "But I was freeborn," meaning he was born there free. He didn't come and had to get papers to get there. And they said, then straightway they departed. Okay, boom. Salakia. Okay, boom. Then it says, verse 29, then straightway they departed from him, which should have examined him. And the chief captain also was afraid after he knew that he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. There's certain things Romans couldn't do to another Roman citizen. And Paul was professing that he was a Roman citizen. That's why you're reading that further down. Paul wanted to go speak to Caesar about what happened to him. Let's go to. Okay, let's go. Let's get this in the NLT, Acts 22:27. This is what I was looking for. So the commander went over and asked Paul, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" Paul replied, "Yes, certainly I am." Well, yes, certainly I am. Paul replied. Verse 29 and 28. "I am too," the commander muttered. "It costs me plenty." Paul answered, "But I am a citizen by birth." That's like us being born here in the Americas. We're a citizen by birth, not how people came in and became citizens. After with like the whole green card and all that. But we're citizens by birth. You know, but it wasn't willingly though. However, now let's go to now. Remember, Paul just said that he's a Roman. Now, Pete, when you go to Romans 11:1, now watch this. Now watch what Paul says. I ask then, has God rejected his own people, the nation of Israel? Of course not. I myself am an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, and a member of the tribe of Benjamin. So now you say, oh, how can you be this and be that? If he's a Roman, he's a Roman. No, he was born in Rome as a citizen, but that doesn't stop his national. That's just what the nation he was born into, but that doesn't stop his ethnicity and who he is. He's a descendant of Abraham. He know who he is. He know he's an Israelite. I was just born in Rome, but that doesn't stop me from being an Israelite. That's like That's like a Chinese person come to the Americas, and the mom and dad is Chinese, and they have a kid, and then oh well, the kid was born in America, but it doesn't stop the kid from being Chinese. You see what I'm saying? It's the same thing. Let's go to Matthew 13:25 really quick. And let's get to this parable really quick about the wheat and tares. Okay. Verse 24. Here it is, another story how it shall told. The kingdom of heaven is like a farmer who planted good seed in his field, but that night, as workers slept, his enemies came and planted weeds among the wheat, then slipped away. When the crop began to grow and produce grain, the weeds also grew. Verse 27. The farmer's workers went to him and said, "Sir, the field where you planted that good seed of full of weeds, where did they come from?" Verse 28. An enemy has done this, the farmer exclaimed. Should we pull out the weeds? They asked. No, he replied. You shall uproot wheat if you do. Let both grow together until the harvest. Then I will tell the harvesters to sort out the weeds and tie them into a bundle and burn them and put the wheat in the barn. That's talk about how Esau came and he sowed his seed amongst us. So that's like, for example, a white man and a black woman have a kid. That kid is not an Israelite. That kid would be an Edomite because the father carries the seed. So he planted the weed inside of the field. So what grew up was weeds, which would be a tare. Because that's not what the farmer grew wheat. So any Israelite man has a kid with any woman, that would be considered wheat. Vice versa. If Edomite come, like I just said, and he sowed his seed, that's are the weeds. So you can't really tell them apart because there's people that looks like us but not us, but people that don't look like us are us. Israel's a speckled bird, so we got to remember that. You just can't go off of skin color. So that's why that's why they say you gotta wait until the end to when it all come up, and then let the reapers break it and tie the weeds and save the wheat. That's how it is now. That's all that's talking about. But if we go to, if I can get to Matthew 25 really quick. 25 and 31. I'll make it really quick. But when the Son of Man come in his glory with all the angels with him, then we will sit upon a glorious throne, and all nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goat. He will place the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left. The same way with the wheat and tare. On the right hand, those are going to be his sheep. And on the left hand are going to be the goats. That's like the tares. So Christ comes, he's dividing the nations. He's going to divide, and he's going to get his people up out of those nations. And he's going to place them on his right side. Those are his sheep. Remember, he came for the lost sheep. The sheep are Israel, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And then the goats are going to be the tares, which are from which Esau planted amongst our people. So when he comes, he's going to separate. That's why I said separate the wheat from the tares, the same way as you're going to separate the sheep from the goat. Same thing. So another small breakdown of Romans 9 and 6. I like to say, give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, and Shalom.